I'd like to broaden up the conversation and include you guys. So if there's any question, please state where you're from, and to include the most of you as possible, try to keep them short. And I don't think we have enough mics, so we'll just shout. Oh, we do have mics. Perfect. Shout in a very polite way. Yeah, but we do have mics, so that's great. Perfect. Behind there's an arm with a white shirt, and you can go first.
Can you hear me? Yes. My name is Gregor Faulkner. I'm from the Norwegian newspaper Dagbladet. I'm not a journalist. I work as a marketing manager, and as a journalist, you need to be critical. But I can allow myself to say that I'm deeply inspired by your work, DEEYAH, and also, like all of you guys, the personal journey that you have been through, to sit there and talk about that is very inspiring. As far as my question is concerned, it's several, if that is okay. The first one is very easy. I mean, why is it only men? That's what I was thinking when I sat here. Second is directed to you, DEEYAH. In parts of your movies, it seemed like you were actually in dangerous situations. Did you ever think that this is not worth it? And my third question would be, if you still keep
Third and last, yes.
Okay, thank you. You guys were talking about planting seeds. I think it was you, Arno. So people who have come quite far in such a radicalization process. Practical advice to people like us, who probably know some of them. What can we do to plant those seeds to get them back?
Very good questions. We'll take them first before we go to other questions. Why only men?
Sure. Women certainly get involved in any kind of violent extremism. Again, the parallels between jihadis and white power guys, like you see the same kind of thing where if a woman who's been through hell and is not feeling that she's important, what better place to go where you're one of very few women? Yeah. It was always kind of a sausage party at these skinhead things, and women were far and few between. And while we were misogynist and chauvinist, they were still like, they got a lot of attention. So I think that there are women who are in this dynamic. It's just they're harder to find, they're harder to reach. As far as the question to me was directed as how do we plant these seeds, my advice is and fortunately, and I believe all of you in this room do this, and many people do, but practice kindness, practice compassion, practice forgiveness. Like, do it as diligently as you'd practice piano if you want to become good at piano. Like, practice those things on a daily basis. Practice gratitude. Gratitude is such a powerful, healthy thing for you, but it affects the people in the world around you as well.
How do you practice it?
I practice gratitude every day by finding, at least taking one moment to be like, this is amazing. Like this, whether it's just a meal that I'm really impressed with, or a beautiful sunset, or just like a person or an experience, take at least one moment of a day to appreciate how amazing our existence is and how it's something to be grateful for. And the more of us who do that, that changes the environment around us. It makes it an environment that's less conducive to the kind of separatism and the angst that drives these violent extremist narratives. And as far as practicing kindness goes, it's easy to be nice to nice people. It's very, DEEYAH, I'm in awe of you. You are absolutely my hero, because as much as I talk about compassion and kindness and all that, I don't think I could have been that kind and compassionate to the dudes you were talking to. When I met Ken at the first time, I was like, I kind of want to just smack this dude. Spoiler alert, Ken and I are now friends now, and Ken's out of the movement. So I'm actually going to Jacksonville from Oslo on Thursday to spend time with Ken. And guess what we're going to do? He's going to break bread with a Jew. But the reason I'm able to work with Ken and with other people in that situation is because I literally practice kindness. If I didn't, I wouldn't be good enough at it in order to show it to the people who need it most.
And DEEYAH, to the question on were you scared and did you ever think it wasn't worth it?
I was scared. I was scared many, many times. There are several instances that were not included in the film because I wasn't allowed to bring a camera. But you know, one of the occasions I ended up at a compound in the mountains of Virginia where there were at least 70 to 90 guys, armed, drunk, bruised, who, I mean, I was told that it was okay for me to go there and to even bring a camera. And my colleague said, just leave the camera for now and we'll just go down, see if it's okay. Then you can bring it. And I was like, no, it's fine, it's fine. He's like, no, trust me, just leave it and we can always come back. We walked down this dirt road, and even halfway through it, they started shouting, you know, who the fuck are you? Who the fuck is this? Can I swear? It's too late. Okay, but this is what they said, you know, so, you know, put your hands up, you know, are you media? Are you this? Are you Jews? Who are you? And I only had a mobile phone in my hand and walked down, and they're getting more and more agitated, more and more aggressive, and they're starting to curse more and more. You know, what kind of a fucking Muslim are you? What kind of this? What kind of that? And coming close with the guns. And I remember looking at my phone, and it says no signal. And at that time, I hadn't told any of my colleagues, hadn't told my family, hadn't really told anyone where I was. And thankfully, we were able to leave because Brian Culpepper, the man who ended up leaving, he was able to talk them out of it and allow us to leave. But I remember standing there when guys are this close in my face, shouting. I remember thinking, if they could put a bullet in me right now and they could bury me right here and nobody would find out, nobody would know what happened. And the first thing that I did as soon as I got back to the motel is I wrote my colleague back in London. I said, look, this is where I am. Here's the phone number for my mother. Here's the phone number for my brother. If you don't hear from me every 2 days, then you just need to let them know. And I remember being at another training camp as well, and there were several guys that kept following me around. And there I was doing a little bit of filming, and several guys kept following me around. And one guy had served in Afghanistan and in Iraq. And he kept looking at me and just stared at me dead in the face and said, you know, the best thing about being in those places was that I got paid money to shoot ragheads like you. And I remember just the spit in my mouth just drying up. And he's sitting there with his gun in his lap. And I left and I, you know, kept filming the other guys. And this other man who suffers severe PTSD, another soldier, severe PTSD, also armed, also drinking, you know, kept saying, I'm going to put a fucking bullet in your camera and I'm going to put a fucking bullet in your head if you turn that camera towards me. And he kept following me everywhere, and I kept going to stop following me. Like, you know, just don't follow me. And, you know, I'm not going to turn the camera towards you. So, yes, I at several points, I did think that I'm probably not going to make it out alive, or unharmed at the very least. But did it make me reconsider whether I should do this or not? Not really, because once you've gone that far, in a way, you kind of then have to finish. Because I'm not going to go that far and then, you know, go, well, maybe not, you know. So I'm not going to put up with all that and then leave. So my point was to finish and go through this no matter what happened. But, you know, I didn't have any security. It was just me and one other person. I mean, you guys know, you know, no big teams, no nothing like that. But I also just would like to echo what Arno and also Pardeep has touched on. I do think that, you know, kindness in these or towards people like this is absolutely crucial. And the reason I say that is they know how to deal with us hating them. They expect us to hate them. They expect us to dehumanize them. They expect all of that. And so they don't know how to react when we don't. That's when these cracks appear in people's minds and in people's hearts. And, you know, for me, I know what it feels like to be stereotyped. I know what it feels like to be dehumanized. You know, I've had experience of that throughout my life. So I am not prepared to do that to somebody else. Even if it's somebody who I disagree with, somebody who I dislike, somebody who even wishes me harm, because if I do that to them, then really what is the difference anymore? My values and the principles that I stand by are only matter if I can afford them and practice them when it's really hard. It's easy for me to be nice to you guys. I mean, that's just easy. I mean, anyone can do that, but you're truly tested when you're confronted with people who you completely disagree with and dislike. And can I very quickly say something to your earlier question about why is this happening now? Jeff touched on this really briefly. I think demographics in many of our societies is shifting. Diversity and multiculturalism and kind of our plural societies are wonderful in one hand, but there are also challenges that come with that. And I think we have to be open and honest and acknowledge the fact that it is difficult to live together. It really is. It's difficult to live together with people that you like and that you choose to live together with. But now we are people from all over the world, from all different parts of the world, sort of mushed together in our different cities and expected just to get along. And it's going to require more effort than that. And many of these men are kind of the left behinds or the dark side of globalization. They feel a sense of loss, they feel fear, they don't know where to place themselves in this very rapidly changing society. And I think it's our obligation to be open and honest about a lot of the conversations, including speaking about some of the bad things that are also happening within minority communities. Because if we don't take those conversations, then populists and the extreme right will absolutely be left to have those conversations, and that is unacceptable, I think. Anyway, that's not what the question you asked, but just...
Really quickly for gentlemen, like men externalize harm, women sometimes internalize harm. And this is, so thinking about why men do this more often, that's their shame coping mechanism. They're not, men just in our culture are not as in tune with our emotions to be able to say, okay, you know what, a lot of that ownership is on me. So there becomes this deflection. So externalizing harm.
We have the time for a couple of more questions. We'll take two in a row. So yeah, the man with the, yes, first.
Hi everyone. My name is Cemal Knudsen Yücel. I'm the founder and leader of Ex-Muslims of Norway. I have two questions, but before that, DEEYAH, you made it 4 very important documentaries, and thank you for each of them. 2 questions. First one is, when we are talking about, or you have shown us in the documentary story, jihad story, and the white right, people with extreme ideas. But you show also to us that they can change their ideas with confrontation, debate, questioning, dialogue. So question have been asked, but the last days in Norway we have the biggest topic, one of the biggest topic is non-platforming. So I didn't get clearly answer. Do you support, each of you, do you support non-platforming? And don't you think if we make non-platforming, and this will make opponents like victims, and it will make them stronger, because both Islamists and the racists have had their platform in many years. This is the first question. And second question, it's not about tonight's topic, but I have to ask. Your third movie, documentary, name is Islam's Non-Believers, about ex-Muslims. And I think it didn't get enough attention in Norway. Actually, I can say that like it not exist in Norway. It didn't get any attention from the media, mainstream media, or anyone. So why you think it's happened to your third movie in Norway? Thank you.
We'll take one more right behind you, and I am sorry to say we have to restrict it to one question from now on, so we can include more people.
Yeah,
Yes.
very short question. Hi, my name is Morhaf. My question is to you, DEEYAH. Did you hear any reactions from the people you interviewed after the film was released, like the leader of the National Socialist Movement? How were their reactions, either directly or indirectly?
Perfect. We'll take them first, and then we can go another round afterwards. So we'll take one last round after this round.
Okay, so very, very briefly, some of the reactions, I'll do it the last. Reactions to the film have been surprisingly okay from the men in the film. I have not spoken to all of them, but some of them I am in touch with, and I will probably continue being in touch with for a very long time. Ken actually liked it. This is before he told me he'd left the movement, because I was a bit nervous how he was going to take it. He told me he liked it. And the leader of the National Socialist Movement, I've been in touch with him as well, and his comment was he thinks it's too short. But he's still emailing me, and we're still in contact, so I don't think I've kind of pissed him off too much. And Brian actually hasn't seen it yet because he's living so remotely that I can't upload even a file to him. But who else has seen it? One of the other young men have seen it. He really likes it. Peter Teft, the young man who spoke about heroism. I'm quite proud of the fact that I managed to do what I wanted to do, and that these guys also don't feel like they were disrespected in that process. And maybe that feels counterintuitive to most people, that I'm thinking about the feelings of neo-Nazis. But to me, it's important to be truthful and to represent people as accurately as I possibly can, with respect, even if I disagree with them and dislike their views. In answer to your question of Islam's non-believers, it was shown in England. You're right, it hasn't been shown in Norway yet. There have been some legal and some security issues around that for some of the people who were in the film. So that is one of the reasons that a lot of the promotion around the film had to slow down for a while. But it will eventually be shown in Norway as well. So there's not like any kind of, there's not a conspiracy or like, it's not being banned or anything like that. There's some very practical reasons why it's just on hold for now. Your first question, was that for me, the no platforming question as well? I do not believe in no platforming. I completely understand and respect the desire to, not allow people onto certain platforms, but I don't believe in it. And the reason I don't believe in it is, having worked with so many different, jihadi stories and also white supremacists at this point, you're absolutely correct. A lot of their recruitment, and Arno, you will probably feel this as well, resides in victimhood. Is they perceive themselves to be victims. They perceive themselves to be outside of society, outside of the mainstream, and somehow they are preaching a truth that nobody else is willing to listen to. They have ideas that are so dangerous and so truthful and so brilliant that nobody wants to touch it. So in some ways, I think if we do not engage with them, then I think their victimhood story becomes true, which I think is dangerous. And I think the second thing that happens is that then their incorrect, very often incorrect views are left unchallenged. I think it's much better to put a light, to show it under sunlight and show how false it is. But we can't, in some ways, if we ignore them, they get to feel self-righteous and victimized, and look, I really am saying the truth, they just don't want to hear it. So I believe in ventilating and kind of putting a light on it, and through that destroying it, actually, rather than letting it fester and incorrect and falsehoods just, perpetuating.
The no platform thing is interesting because we have the same debate in the States. Now, we have weapons of mass destruction, which can be mass communication. And we have to be responsible with that. But what I'm worried about on this is also, what are you saying about the general public? That they don't have the ability to be able to consume a product responsibly, that we have to basically create a law that censors what they can consume. Any zero tolerance policy has a very severe backlash. And you don't find out about it until later on. And I would question, what is it about society that's making people believe that we don't have the ability to be able to censor our worst demons? And maybe that's a question that we really have to ask ourselves. Because sometimes I find the people that are most likely to vilify than other have the same amount of visceral hatred within their heart. Yes, it doesn't come off as white supremacy, but it comes off as other anger. And is it that demon that you're so scared to look at because it exists inside us and we're going unchallenged? And now we're saying, okay, you know what? We live in this society where we don't have to look at our demons because we can look at those demons. That's the question I'm having. I'm like, why even have this debate? Why are we having this discussion? And what does that say about everybody in this room?
I think you've all given us a lot of deep questions to go home and think about later tonight. We do have a last round of questions. There are two in the front here. Okay, one there, and then the two women in the front here.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Evian Chain-Leidig, and I'm a PhD researcher at the Center for Research on Extremism. So my work looks at ethnic minority and immigrant supporters of the far right. And I bring this up because the far right is trying to moderate its image to sort of welcome new people into its fold. So my question is to anybody on the panel to see if there were certain people that you encountered, perhaps in making this documentary, who didn't fall within this sort of stereotype that we might have about white supremacists.
Hold that thought, and then we'll include in the front there, there's two, and then there's one there, and that will be the last. Yeah, there.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth Ada, worked with journalism education for a couple of decades, and also a writer. I'll try to look into the finer distinctions of the film. And by the way, thanks for the film, and DEEYAH, thanks for bringing this fantastic guys to this audience. There are two scenes in particular that we haven't touched upon. One is the clash in Charlottesville, and the other one is where Richard Spencer has to face these very quiet, grieving people. And I was wondering if you could say something about how you evaluate. I mean, there is resistance against these right-wing supremacists all over the world, all over Europe too, and they work in different moves and in different ways. And I think you have quite different ways of distinguishing than Donald Trump when he says there are good people on both sides. You wouldn't say there are bad people on both sides, period. You would handle it differently, I guess, and I'd like you to elaborate a bit on that. Thank you.
My name's Ifit Qureshi. I run the page Humans of Oslo, and I'm also an artist as well. I've been following your work for quite some time, and I think it's absolutely phenomenal. I mean, it's amazing what you've managed to do, and this is the fourth time I've watched your documentary, and it still looks just as interesting and just as exciting. What I wanted to ask you is, I mean, I do photography, right, and I do interviews with people as well, and I was asked, why don't you do interview with people who are on the far right? This was like a few years ago. And then the question arose, should I give them a platform? Should I use a page like Humans of Oslo, which is about community, it's about, coming together and getting rid of stereotypes, or should I actually give them that space? And that was also something that I had to work with within myself as well. I thought, no, but it's a nice page, why destroy the fun? Okay, so that was, should we, how far do we actually go in that discussion, and is it fair to actually even control their discussion, to control that platform? Exact same way as we on the left would dislike it if somebody was controlling our discussion. And the second question is, what's your next project?
That one was allowed, even though it was a second question. Okay, yeah, last question here, and then...
Hi, my name is Noni Bogen. Oops. My name is Noni Munge and I'm from Kenya. I'm here on holiday. So thank you so much, Pradeep, for inviting my husband and I to attend. My question relates to what you said, and I was quite perturbed by it because I've never thought about it, which is what role does the far left have in pushing white nationalists deeper into extremism? And thank you for raising that because you kind of opened my mind to a different kind of thought pattern. And this relates to what are your views about Colin Kaepernick's protests and like not standing for the American flag? What are your views on the Black Lives Matter? Are they effective or aren't they? And how can we protest in a way that reaches out to people? Thank you.
Thank you for very interesting questions. So the first one was on how the white supremacy groups are recruiting also non-whites, I guess. I don't know.
I think that's absolutely fascinating, and to me, someone who literally, like, I love diversity. Like, many people, the reason I love it is I deprived myself of it for so long. Now I'm just like, this is awesome. New York City is one of my favorite places on earth. And just walking down the block in Manhattan, I'm just like, this is amazing. I love this place.
Practicing gratitude.
Absolutely. I have gratitude left and right there. Because 20 years ago, I would have been scared shitless walking down the same block. And so it's all like in my mind that where that shift happened. And that's why I'm really excited about the possibility. But talking about the demographic of people of color, Muslim people getting involved in far-right circles, to me it's fascinating because here you have a political ideology that claims to be opposed to diversity and multiculturalism, but diversity is so inevitable that even they will succumb to it, whether they like it or not. And that being that in the United States, one of the fastest growing demographics in the alt-right is Latino men. Like, if your name is Robert Gonzalez and you're tired of the illegals coming and you want to wave an American flag and bitch about Muslims, like, you will not only be accepted, you will be embraced and celebrated, because then they can be like, we're not racist. See, we got the Mexican guy here who doesn't want the illegals. But it's not just a posturing thing. Like, they will genuinely go up and be like, you're awesome, Robert. Like, they will, like, really like that person because now they can be like, I'm not racist. See? Here's the brown guy who agrees with me. And they're exactly. So there's a huge demographic of that. And it happens all over the place. In England, there have been like anti-Sharia marches where these Islamophobes go to the LGBT community and they're like, you know, they want to throw you off a building, right? You know, that's what they do. So come march with us. So it's like anti-Sharia with rainbow flags. It's really like fascinating. It's disturbing, but to me, it's an evidence that like this is all inevitable. There is no getting away from diversity. It's just the natural, healthy state of a biosystem of human species. Is that diversity is a natural, healthy state. The one other question. Could I jump to the CAP question, the BLM question? I agree that, and I share the frustration. Like, if there's no right way as far as the American right is concerned for a person of color to express themselves about what's happening nowadays. If you sit down, if you stand up, if you yell, if you don't yell, like, there's no right way to do it. I think we need to keep doing that. I'm all for Colin Kaepernick, and one of the reasons I'm all for him is because I believe as an American, like, the most beautiful thing about the American flag is that you can wipe your ass with it and set it on fire and you're not going to go to jail. Like, that's freedom to me, and that means if Colin Kaepernick wants to take a knee during a national anthem.
Explain who it is?
Colin Kaepernick?
Yeah.
I made an assumption that everybody knows. Colin Kaepernick is a NFL football player. He's a quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. I know him well because I was cursing him as he dissected my football team the first time I saw him play. Like, I hate that guy, get him! But so he's very good at what he does, but he's also very political. And he started taking a knee during the national anthem before football games to protest police brutality against people of color and systemic racism, a lot, political ideas. But he did it very respectfully, and I don't. This idea that he's disrespecting the flag when he does that is completely in the head of these people who are accusing him of it. I'm a critic of America, but I also think it's an amazing place, and we got a lot of great, unique things about our country. And one of them is that freedom to dissent and the freedom to not salute that flag. So that, to me, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. But I guess your point was whether or not those kind of actions, like you were saying, the far left is pushing people.
This is the mistake that the left makes, and I'm saying this a left-leaning person myself, it's the no platform, it's the no tolerance. It's because what happens in the States, and I know this is my Facebook feed all the time, if you got a problem with Colin Kaepernick, you're a white supremacist, capitalist, oppressor, Nazi, and you should be no platform, and everybody should turn their back on you, and you're part of the problem, and blah, blah, blah. Like that rigidity, that's the problem. So what we need to do, people who are progressive, people who believe in what Colin Kaepernick is doing, people who believe that the words Black Lives Matter needs to be said in our society, it's on us to sit down and have those conversations with people who are freaked out about it and be like, no, dude, this is how I do it. I say, look, I don't speak for Black Lives Matter, obviously, but this is what it means to me. This is how I interpret it. And then I share with someone on a personal level. And if we can have the courage that DEEYAH has, to have those conversations and to not shut down and not no platform people, then we stand a chance of really having some transformative discussion in our society.
We have to soon round up, but DEEYAH, you got some questions linked to this and some of the scenes of the movie, this form of resistance that Elizabeth were asking about.
Well, just to follow up on what you just said, because it goes into the question you were just asking, which is, I actually don't think that it is the responsibility of victimized people or victimized communities to have to engage with their abuser. So I don't actually believe in that. Having said that, we all have to do whatever we all feel comfortable doing. For me, this is something that I wanted to do, but by making that gesture, I am not saying that that's also something you should do. So everyone should, everyone has to engage or disengage in the way that is okay for them. Wasn't that your question?
Yeah.
Is how far do we take this?
Yeah, how far do we take it? And it's like, should we control the discussion, like you're saying, like give them a platform, but at the same time have it kind of within a specific frame?
I mean, to me, it sounds really a bit bland in some ways, but either you're kind of for free expression and free speech, or you're sort of not. And I'm very much in the camp of being for it, even when I find somebody's speech to be absolutely repulsive. I don't believe that the solution to bad speech is less speech or shutting down speech. I believe that the answer to bad speech is actually more speech and better speech. So I believe in actually opening and stretching the space for conversation even farther rather than narrowing it down, because if we start narrowing the area of what we can and cannot speak and who has the right to speak and not speak, that's also, it's not relative, but it's in their eyes, I shouldn't have a right to speak. So it's a very, very slippery slope, and unless somebody is inciting death and violence, I think people should get to say whatever they want to say. But I also recognize the fact that not everyone feels like I feel, but that's my view. My view is we have to challenge them, we're standing at a point in time now where the extreme right is becoming mainstream. And that's frightening. That's absolutely terrifying. And that is, to me, an argument for all of us jumping into this conversation. We can no longer afford to sit on the sideline being passive, just spectators anymore. So we have to get in. They're getting in. And like some of the men that you saw in the film, these types of men used to be on the margins of society. This used to be kind of the crazy few. And now we're starting to see mainstream politicians all across Europe and in America uttering similar views. So I think, how many people are we going to know no platform? Well, It's not going to happen. So let's get in and let's engage, and more people of color, more women, more LGBT, more diversity, let's get in and really confront this. Otherwise, they occupy this space. And like I said earlier, we can't afford that. So we cannot hand over the conversation. So instead of shutting them down, let's engage in it. Let's participate and let's take the microphone and participate instead, I think. And Elizabeth, remind me of your question.
The two different scenes, the two different ways of resistance.
Yes.
The anti-Fa and the more wisdom will come.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, you know, it's unfair to also categorize to portray this movement as only on the rise and there's nothing on the other side. Or only anti-fascist or the far left being on the other side. When I was in Charlottesville, there were grandmothers, there were people from the local community who, I mean, they couldn't get very close because it got so violent, but there were people from the local community absolutely just devastated that their community was being used in this way. So you had people from every single background is fighting this. I mean, I think something has happened in America since the election of Donald Trump, where they have been activated in a way that I've never seen. I've lived in America for 7 or so years, and I always used to complain, how come Americans are so lazy politically? How come they don't get out into the streets? How come they don't complain? How come they're not politically engaged? And I'm completely proven wrong. Now they're absolutely doing that, and we're seeing women very much leading that opposition. And I find it interesting that women are leading a lot of the resistance and the opposition to this type of ideology, because this is a very anti-woman ideology. And why aren't there more women in it? Because it's the kind of worldview that these men have is that the only role of women is to basically reproduce the white race, quote unquote. I mean, that's not particularly appealing to most women, you know. So it's fascinating to me that the women pushing back against this are women of all kinds of backgrounds as well. And then you asked me about, yes, you know, like the peaceful protest against, or in remembrance of Heather Hare, who was killed at Charlottesville. People in America are very much engaging in this debate and in this topic in various different ways. And that's sort of my point to you, Ifrit, as well, is we all can engage in different ways. We can show our backs to them, we can throw stuff at them, we can go meet with them, we can show them kindness, we can shout them down. Whatever the entire spectrum of engagement is up for grabs. And it's up to us to engage, no matter how we engage, but we have to now engage. It's otherwise this is slipping out of our hands. And I believe this is very much a last stand of kind of this fascistic movement everywhere. And as much as that's encouraging, because the reality is we are becoming diverse societies. Can't reverse the clock on that. So that's a reality that they're starting to see, but they want to make a last stand. And when people become desperate, and it is a last fight, they're also capable of doing really, really bad things. And that worries me. And one more thing that nobody's really brought up very much, but I would like to just say, if you don't mind, is it's fascinating to me, and maybe we can talk about it later, about 80% of the men that I met are all ex-military. And I find that to be very interesting. I find that to be extremely troubling. When I was doing a lot of work around jihadis in England, I don't know if the same rhetoric is used here, but in England, people keep talking about returnees. What are we going to do with the returnees? And whenever people would use that term returnee, it means a Muslim boy or girl, right? But to me, what are we going to do with these returnees? They have done things, they have seen things, they are severely damaged, very, very traumatized, and then they're coming back to a country that is also not particularly looking after them or respecting them or providing them the support and the medical and the mental health support that they need. This group is actively going out and recruiting men who are ex-military. Actively. Wade Page was exactly. And I find this really interesting, and I find that this is something that needs to be looked at. So if there are journalists in this room, this is a film that needs to be made. This is a story that needs to be really investigated deeper. I would do it myself, but I don't think I would survive making that film. I think I would trigger so many bad things in men like that I don't think I would make it out alive. So somebody else needs to do it. But honestly, I mean, I think it's such an important story that nobody really is talking about. and they're trained. These are men who are absolutely trained, and for a movement who is preaching a race war and are actively enlisting former servicemen, I think should be a cause for at least pause and concern, I would say.
In the States, we have some of the fastest rising organizations are not just like Nazis and skinheads. It's the Oath Keepers, the sovereign citizens groups, the militia that has formed their own ID cards. They got their own laws, and I mean this is paramilitary style training that they're preparing for some kind of Armageddon, like it's some kind of end of time thing that's going to happen, and they're stockpiling weapons. And I do want to go back to the cap question and say, I think the question here is revolution or reform. And both of those, revolution, if you're going to do a revolution, if we got a revolution, something has to be in place. Because there's too many revolutions that have happened when something was not in place. And Arab Springs, the revolution was worse than what was in place before. Then we talk about reform and not going far enough to say we are seeing true people, like people's worth, in essence, is being questioned. So Kaepernick's protest is really about how people of color are not seen as equal by law enforcement. How we said before, these people that were gunned down that day, August 5th, basically they weren't just told that they don't belong in this country, you don't belong on the face of this earth. And how many people are subliminally told that message at home when they see people of their skin color be gunned down, but not have a gun or anything on them? So what are people being told, and how much are they being told their worth?
I mean, we could continue this conversation for hours, and we should when we all go home, but we unfortunately have to close it down for tonight. Thank you so much to DEEYAH, Arno, and Pardeep for coming and sharing their stories with us. Thank you so much to all of you for coming and participating in the conversation. Go home and practice gratitude and kindness, engage with people, and let's continue this conversation that we started tonight. Thank you so much.